7 years is a long time to forget a voice, but when I heard hers that night, it felt like time had only been sleeping. Lightly. I was sitting at a quiet Italian place downtown, the kind of restaurant where the lights are dim and the air smells like warm bread and garlic. Friday night solo dinner after work. I'd just closed a deal at the firm and promised myself a rare moment of peace. My phone was on silent, my jacket draped over the next chair, my mind blissfully empty. Then I heard laughter. Hers. Low, familiar, wrapped in the same cadence that used to fill my kitchen years ago. I froze before I turned. For a second I thought maybe I'd imagined it. 7 years is enough for memory to play tricks. But when I finally looked over my shoulder, there she was. Emily. Same posture. Same habit of tucking her hair behind her ear when she laughed. Different haircut, shorter maybe, and a different man sitting across from her. I couldn't see his face clearly, but the way she leaned toward him, casual, comfortable, was the same way she once leaned toward me. My chest tightened. Not jealousy. Just a strange, quiet recognition that someone who once knew every corner of your heart is now a stranger at the next table. I turned back to my plate, but the fork trembled in my hand. The waiter came by and asked if I needed anything else. No, I said, though my voice cracked. I wasn't hungry anymore. A part of me wanted to leave right then. Another part, the part that still remembered her birthday without meaning to, wanted to stay. 7 years since the divorce. 7 years since the last time I'd seen her face in person. I used to wonder what I'd say if we ever crossed paths again. Would I tell her I was doing fine? Would I apologize for my share of the wreckage? Or would I just walk past her like we never met? I didn't have to decide. Because Emily stood up first, I felt her presence before she spoke. She'd walked over, and now she was standing beside my table. For a heartbeat, neither of us said a word. The music from the restaurant filled the silence, a slow Sinatra tune about second chances. She said softly, "Daniel." Her voice was steady, but her hands were gripping her purse tightly. I looked up, met her eyes, and for a second the years fell away. I was 28 again, sitting on our old couch watching her read under the lamp. "Hi," I said finally. She smiled, small, cautious. "It's really you." "Last I checked," I replied, forcing a chuckle. Awkward pause. The kind that feels heavy with everything unsaid. "How have you been?" she asked. "Good, working a lot. You?" She hesitated, glancing toward the man at her table. "I'm managing," I nodded. "That's something." She shifted her weight like she was deciding whether to leave or stay. Then she said it. The words that would stay with me long after the night ended, but not yet. First, she looked down at my empty plate and said, "You always ordered the carbonara. You said it tasted like comfort." I couldn't help but smile. Still does. That tiny shared memory cracked the distance between us, if only for a second. The waiter passed by and refilled my water glass, giving her a polite nod. 7 years, she murmured. Feels like a different lifetime. Maybe it was, I said. She looked at me then, really looked. And I could see the faint tiredness under her eyes. The same kind that used to show up after our late-night arguments about bills, work, and all the small misunderstandings that slowly became walls. "You look good," she said quietly. "Thanks. You too." And then she said it, her first real words that weren't small talk, the ones that made my pulse skip. "Daniel." I still think about what I said that night, the night you left. My throat tightened. That night. The one that had ended everything. Before I could respond, her companion came up beside her, smiling politely. "Everything okay, Em?" he asked. She nodded quickly. "Yeah, just saying hi to an old friend." She turned back to me. "It was good seeing you." "Yeah," I managed. "You too." She started to walk away but then paused. Looked back. Eyes glistening just a little. "Maybe it's not too late to apologize," she whispered. And before I could say anything, she was gone. Back to her table, to her new life. To the music and candlelight that blurred around her. I sat there. Heartbeat loud in my ears, replaying her words. Not too late to apologize for what? I wondered. For leaving? For staying too long? For breaking what we both failed to fix? I didn't know yet. But I was about to find out. I couldn't stop replaying that line in my head. Maybe it's not too late to apologize. It wasn't the words themselves, it was the way she said them. Not like someone trying to reopen a wound, but like someone realizing too late how deep it went. After she went back to her table, I just sat there pretending to finish my drink, but my mind was stuck somewhere between the past and the present. I caught glimpses of her laughing softly with the man, her face half lit by candlelight. But she wasn't the woman I'd once married. She was someone older, quieter, softer maybe. I paid my bill and stepped outside into the night. The air was cool, the street wet from a light drizzle that had passed earlier. I stood there for a moment under the awning, breathing in the scent of rain and exhaust, wondering if I should go back in, say something more, something real. But what would I even say? It's fine. Don't worry about it. The truth was, I didn't even know what she was apologizing for anymore. There had been too many nights, too many sharp words thrown in the dark. As I walked to my car, I remembered that final night, 7 years ago. The fight had started small, like they all do. She said I cared more about work than us. I said she didn't understand pressure. She told me I was cold. I told her she was cruel. And then she said it. I don't love you anymore, Daniel. She said it calm, certain, like reading a weather report. And I'd packed a bag that night, half expecting her to stop me. She didn't. That was the memory that used to burn. But over the years, time had sanded its edges down. I'd learned to live with silence. I'd built something steady, something quiet. Yet tonight her voice had brought every dull ember back to life. I drove home, windows down, city lights passing like ghosts. I told myself I'd forget it by morning, but when I walked into my apartment, the stillness pressed against me and her words came back, clearer than before. Maybe it's not too late to apologize. At midnight, I poured myself a glass of bourbon and sat by the window. Outside, the rain had started again, thin and steady. I took out my phone, scrolling through old messages I'd never deleted. Most were just fragments now, reminders, grocery lists, a few photos from the years when things were still simple. Then I stopped at one message from years ago. Her last text before the divorce papers came through. I hope you find peace, Daniel. At the time, I'd read it as final, but now sitting there 7 years later, I realized maybe she hadn't found peace either. I didn't call her. Didn't text. Some things don't need to be resurrected, but I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I went for a walk through the park near my place. It was early, quiet, fog curling around the trees. That's when I saw a familiar shape sitting on a bench, someone holding a coffee staring at the lake. It was Emily, alone. She looked up as I approached, surprised, almost embarrassed. You again, she said softly. I smiled. Guess we both needed fresh air. She laughed faintly. I couldn't sleep. We sat in silence for a minute, listening to the ducks on the water. Finally, she said, about last night. I didn't mean to stir things up. You didn't, I lied. She turned to me, eyes steady. I just needed to say I'm sorry for the way I ended things. I was angry, and I thought walking away would make me happy. It didn't. I didn't say anything. Sometimes silence is the only language that fits. She looked down at her hands. I kept telling myself you didn't care, but the truth is you did. You just didn't know how to show it. I nodded slowly. We both made mistakes. Yeah, she whispered. But I think I made the biggest one. We sat there a while longer, both knowing there was nothing left to fix and nothing really broken anymore. Just two people who had loved each other once, finally saying the words that had been missing. When she stood up to leave, she touched my shoulder lightly. Take care of yourself, Daniel. You too, Emily. She smiled, walked away through the fog, and didn't look back. I stayed there long after she was gone. The morning light was starting to break through the clouds, glinting off the lake. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt since the day I left. Peace. Forgiveness doesn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it's just a few quiet words in a park. Years too late, but somehow right on time. That night in the restaurant, I thought her first words had sent shivers down my spine because of the pain they carried. Now I know they did because they carried something else. Closure. And that, I realized, is what 7 years had been trying to give me all along.